What's up guys, Galaxy King here, and in today's video I've got my Vampire Zombie World deck profile for you guys. Making a vampire deck that was competitive, or as competitive as it could be, was... I wouldn't say it was a massive struggle, but it was somewhat of a struggle to an extent, because there were a bunch of different builds that I went with, a bunch of different variants, and a bunch of different ratios that I had to try out to try and make this deck as consistent and as good as it could possibly be. And I feel like I've done that. I feel pretty proud of this deck, and I'll do a combo at the end of the video where one combo can go 2 or 3 different ways, and I'll go with a combo with Uni-Zombie or Solitaire with a vampire monster in case you don't get to Zombie World on time. And that's what's really good about vampires. They're completely unreliant on Zombie World and just zombie monsters overall, because they're their own fleshed out archetype rather than actual Zombie World, which is just a bunch of zombie cards put together to make a competitive deck. So let's get on with the deck profile. So for the monsters, 2 Doom King Bailudrock, really powerful card, provides 2 interruptions in 1 card, and if this card is in the graveyard and you control Zombie World, you can bring it back, which is really good. You can bring it back as many times as you need, so long as Zombie World is on the field. And then once per turn, when a zombie monster activates its effect, you can either activate one of these effects, you can either banish one monster on the field, or you can negate that effect. So with Zombie World on the field, everything becomes zombie, so everything is a target for this card. And also this card is searchable with Glove Bloom as well, which is really good. For your other zombies, triple Uni-Zombie and triple Shunari Solitaire. Just about the best ratio for these cards, honestly. Shunari Solitaire because it's pretty much Zombie Lone Fire Blossom, and Uni-Zombie because it's a double Foolish Burial in 1, which is really good. And it's also good for your synchro plays and link plays, especially with Crystal and Halki Fibrax, since you kind of rely on that for the combo, unfortunately. But either way, Uni-Zombie and Solitaire, really amazing cards. And then for your other zombie monsters, 2 Necroworld Banshee and 2 Glow Up Bloom. Glow Up Bloom, really powerful, and you've got more targets with this card as well, like your Vampire Scarlet Scourge or Shadow Vampire. You can banish Glow Up Bloom from the graveyard, then special summon Doom King Bailudrock from your deck if Zombie World is on the field, or you can add it to your hand if it's not, which is really good. And then 2 Necroworld Banshee, just to get to your Zombie World as quickly as possible. If you want to play 3 of this, you can, but I found that 2 works just fine. You can banish it from the graveyard and then activate Zombie World directly from your deck, and also while it's on the field, neither player can target Zombie World with card effects. That effect doesn't really come up that much because it doesn't stay on the field for that long, but if you need it, it's there. And then for your zombie extenders, 2 Mizuki, 1 Gozuki and 1 Plague Spreader Zombie. Mizuki because it's probably one of the best zombie monsters the game has at the moment, and contributes to certain combos that you would need and helps for late game plays. Gozuki because it's a really good extender. If it's basically another Uni-Zombie, because once per turn you can send 1 zombie monster from your deck to the graveyard, and if this card is sent to the graveyard, you can banish 1 zombie monster from your graveyard except itself, special summon a zombie from your hand. So that's really good for certain vampires, because when they're special summoned, you can pay 500 life points and then special summon them from your hand. And 1 Plague Spreader Zombie because it's a Crystal and Halki Fibrax target, and also it's a really good extender for certain synchro plays that I'll get into later on. And also in a combo where you can't get to Zombie World as quickly as you can then use this effect. Sorry, you can special summon it with Halki Fibrax, provided you have a tuner on the field like Uni-Zombie and you can't get to Zombie World. You can then summon this from the deck, and then if hopefully you'll have a vampire in your graveyard that you can special summon and then synchro summon into something like Herald of the Arclight. But again, I'll go into a combo in that later on in the video. So that's it for your zombie extenders. For your vampires, wouldn't say I'm playing too many, but I'm playing the ratio that worked the most. So 1 Vampire Scarlet Scourge and then 1 Shadow Vampire. Mostly Shadow Vampire is a really good vampire monster in theory, because when it's normal summoned, you can special summon a vampire monster from your deck, which is really good. The problem is that effect only goes off when it's normal summoned, as opposed to normal or special summoned, which can be really annoying. Yes, there are cards that give you an additional normal summon, like Vampire's Domain, but as a one-off, it's just good enough, which is why you don't really want to see it too much. If this had the effect where if it was normal or special summoned, then I'd definitely play more than one of this. But at the moment, it's just normal summon, so one is all you need. And then only one Vampire Scarlet Scourge, because it's a really good vampire monster and a really good extender. The problem is, the majority of the time, your vampire monsters will be banished, because when you special summon them with their own effects, they are banished. Plus, you do have to pay 1,000 life points to activate its effect, because on normal special summon, pay 1,000, target a vampire in the graveyard, special summon it. Yes, that's really good, but the majority of the time, your vampires will be banished. Because the majority of vampires that I'm playing are just Familiar and Retainer, because they're the best. So, only one Scarlet Scourge, because only one's needed. At least in testing, one was all I needed. And then for the other vampire monsters, I'm playing triple Vampire Familiar and triple Vampire Retainer. Really similar in terms of effects, because when they're special summoned, you can pay 500 life points, and then Familiar will search you out a vampire monster, which is really good, and then Retainer will search out a vampire spell or trap card. And there are some really good spell and traps that vampires have access to. Vampire Domain and Vampire Domination as well are particularly interesting, and I'll get to those very soon. And while these are in the graveyard, you can send one vampire card from your hand or face up from the field to the graveyard and then special summon them, but they are banished when they leave the field. And the good thing about these cards as well is if you open up with multiples, like if you have 2 Retainer in your hand and you manage to get one into the graveyard and you want to use this effect, you can also discard itself as well. Because I've noticed that certain cards say, let's say Familiar has the effect where you can send one vampire card from your hand or field to the graveyard except itself. I've noticed that is on quite a few cards. They don't have that restriction, which is absolutely amazing. So if you open up with multiples of itself, you can then discard the other copy, so it's not too much of a brick if you open up with multiples. It's better if you just open up with one of them, but if you open up with multiples, it's not as bad as it seems, which is really good. And another good thing you can do is if you open up with Familiar, you can then use this effect to search this out, and then if this is in the graveyard and you didn't summon it by its own effect, you can then send this to the graveyard, so summon this, and then send this to the graveyard, but then obviously it will get banished, special summon this, and then you get the draw, which is absolutely amazing. So 3 of them, absolutely amazing and absolutely mandatory to play of. And then for hand traps, only hand trap I play, 3 Ash Blossom, probably the best hand trap that we have at the moment, and because it's a zombie, it contributes to this deck as well. And I want to bring up one thing as well, and if you open up with this, and a way you can special summon a vampire or another monster onto the field, you can still go into your combo, because I'll get into it later on in the video, but if you open up with Ash Blossom because it's a tuner and another zombie or just any monster you can special summon and then go into Halki Fibrax, you can do a variation of the combo, and I'll get into that very soon. And that's it for the monsters. I'm going to go into the spells now. For the spells, triple Vampire Domain and triple Zombie World. Zombie World, pretty self-explanatory, turns everything on the field in the graveyards into zombies. You can easily search this with Necrod Banshee by banishing it for the graveyard, or with Terraforming, it's really up to you, or opening up with it, that's even better. And then triple Vampire Domain, this is a really powerful card because once per turn you can pay 500 life points and you get 1 additional normal summon for a vampire monster, which is absolutely amazing. So it can extend your plays and also helps if you don't open up with an ideal hand. Now what I was talking about earlier with Ash Blossom is I was doing test hands and I opened up with Vampire's Domain and Vampire Retainer and Ash Blossom, and I'm struggling to remember if I open up with Zombie World, Terraforming or Foolish Burial, Descend Necroid Banshee, but either way I was able to get to Zombie World and I was able to end on pretty much the same end board as you would with Unizombie, because Domain, you pay 500 life points, normal summon one of your vampires like Familiar or Retainer, then link off with it, and then you can send this to the graveyard to special summon the vampire back from the graveyard, then pay another 500 to get the search off depending on whatever you summoned, which is really good. And this is searchable with Vampire Retainer as well, in case you need to play it at any point. If there's a certain play you're trying to get, then go for it. I don't play Vampire's Desires, which is, it's a Foolish Burial and Monster Reborn in one that is searchable. The problem is it relies on you having some monster on the field, and the majority of the time with Foolish Burial you're not going to have many monsters on the field, especially if you can't summon anything as well. So for Vampire's Desires to rely on you having a monster on the field, and the fact that it requires specifically vampires, it is a little awkward. And because Foolish Burial can just send anything, Vampire Desires requires you to send a vampire, which is annoying. And then for additional cards, 2 Super Poly, just to help mess with the opponent, especially since we play Zombie World, so you can use this special summon Draco Necro Neversoul Dragon or Starving Venom Fusion Dragon, probably the best Super Poly targets we have in the game at the moment. 1 Terraforming to search out your Zombie World in case you need to. 1 Monster Reborn, because it's Monster Reborn, and then 1 Foolish Burial, because it's Foolish Burial. We have a lot of cards that want to be in the graveyard, like Mizuki, Banish Mizuki, special summon it from the graveyard. You've also got your vampires like Retainer, Familiar, so you can use those, then special summon them. Glow Up Bloom as well, so you can banish it, special summon a level 5 or higher zombie from your deck. So a lot of different situations where this card comes in handy. And that's it for the spells. For the only traps that I'm playing 1 Vampire Domination and 1 Vampire Awakening. Really interesting cards. Vampire Domination in particular, because it says if you control a vampire monster, you can negate 1 monster, spell or trap card the opponent would activate. So it's an Omni Negate if you control a vampire monster. And the majority of the time you're going to end on Vampire Sucker, and that card fulfills the requirements, so you can use Vampire Domination and add an extra Omni Negate onto the field. Which, who knows, it could get you really far depending on what you negate with your opponent. And also, if you negate a monster, you gain life points equal to that monster's attack points. So let's say you negate something like Red Eyes Darkness Metal Dragon. You negate that with Domination and then destroy it, and then you gain 2,800 life points. Or even something else that has even more than that. So you can gain more life points, and then you can do a lot with this card, which is absolutely amazing. And then 1 Vampire Awakening. This is an interesting extender and helps set up for next turn in case you need it. Once per turn you can special summon 1 vampire monster from your deck, but destroy it during the end phase. So there is a combo where you can use either one of these, but if you open up with one of them, you can then search out the either and then get both benefits. But the combo that I'm talking about, which I'll go into just after the extra deck, is very similar to the Unizombie and Necroid Banshee combo, where you end on Halki Fibrax, Vampire Sucker, and Doom King Battledrock with Zombie World on the field. And then you use Halki Fibrax effect to special summon Formula Synchron, and then quickly synchro into your Shunari Shogun Saga, Sun Saga, and then pop a monster on the field. So it's very similar to that, only there are some situations where... I've changed the combo around quite a bit. Not too much, but to an extent where you can end on either this or this, and then go into something completely different depending on a certain situation. So, depending on your preference, and also in case you think Shunari's Sun Saga is not overly reliable, just being able to destroy 1 card. But either way, I'll go into that combo very soon. And that's it for the the main deck. I'm going to go into the extra deck now. For the extra deck, 2 Vampire Sucker, just about the best zombie link monster we have at the moment. When a zombie is special summon from the graveyard, you get to draw a card. It's a really useful effect. Then 1 Avenged Savior, really good card for getting over monsters and sending cards that you need in the graveyard into the graveyard, which is really good. 1 Ball Sword Dragon, good for OTKing and going second. 1 Nightmare Unicorn, just good for getting over problematic cards that the opponent would have. 1 Crystal Huggy Fibrax, another really powerful card. You link summon it and then you special summon a tuner from your deck. So in this instance it would be Glow Up Bloom, and then you use Glow Up Bloom to go into Link Rebo, and then use Glow Up Bloom to use its effect. So that's one option that you have. And then 1 Link Rebo for reasons I just said. Then for the synchros that I'm playing, 1 Ball Savage Dragon, really powerful card. If you can summon it, you get another one when you get on the field, which is really good. The 1 Berserker of the Tenyu, I really like this card because it's good going first and going second as well, because once per turn when the opponent activates a monster effect, you get to banish it. And also there are certain situations where if you can't get to Zombie World, there's a combo where you can end on Herald of the Arclight and this, which is really good. And then 1 Shunui Sun Saga. You can go into this using Crystal Huggy Fibrax effect to banish it, and then special summon Formula Synchron, and then use Formula Synchron to special summon... use Formula Synchron and Doom King Baladrock to go into Shunui Sun Saga. And then Sun Saga's effect will activate to destroy 1 monster on the field. So, cards on the field up to the number of return Synchro monsters from your graveyard into the extra deck. So, there are certain situations where you might think it's a little not worth going into this, especially if they get rid of Zombie World or they get rid of Baladrock. Then this is just, it can be somewhat unreliable in certain situations. But if you can go into it and get rid of a problematic card the opponent would have, that's amazing. But what I prefer is using Crystal Huggy Fibrax and Formula Synchron to go into something that would benefit me further, just unreliant from what the situation is in terms of my Zombie World. So something like Herald of the Arclight, for instance, and then 1 Herald of the Arclight. Again, I personally prefer going into this over Sun Saga, because you've got Vampire Retainer, which is a level 2, and you can special summon it with Vampire Awakening, use Huggy Fibrax to special summon Formula Synchron, draw a card because of its effect, and then quickly synchro into this. And then you've got an Omni-Negate and a Macrocosmos on the field, rather than just 1 pop. So that's one situation that you have access to, which is really useful in certain situations. And the amazing thing is you can go into this regardless if you have Zombie World or Baladrock on the field, which is absolutely amazing. And also one thing I do want to mention really quickly is I personally think that on the July ban list, this is going to get hit. Because as of recording, Lightning Overdrive it's literally right around the corner. And with certain cards that are coming out in that set, like I believe Herald of Perfection, or is it Definer of Doubt? I can't remember what its name is exactly, but the one that is getting the TCG import, which is going to help ritual decks out a lot. And I might be wrong in this, a new Dryatron Xyz monster. Now, I might be wrong in this, I might not be, but I do think the Herald of the Arclight will either be banned or limited on the next ban list. I hope it doesn't, because I really like the card, but that's one thing that could happen. Just wanted to bring that up really quickly. And then 1 TG Wonder Magician and 1 Formula Synchron. Formula Synchron because of reasons I've just gone through. Use Huggy Fibrax, special summon this, use this effect to draw a card, and then hopefully get into Ash Blossom or an extender for next turn, and then quickly synchro into either Sun Saga or Herald of the Arclight, or Berserker of the Tenyi or Ballsword Dragon, depending on what the situation is, which is really good. And then one TG Wonder Magician, similar to Formula Synchron, but if your opponent would have a problematic card that you really want to get rid of, like Mystic Mine or something else that you think is really going to damage what you're trying to do, you can then go into this using Huggy Fibrax effect, and then you can pop one Spectre Trap card on the field. And then it has the exact same effect as Formula Synchron, quick synchro into whatever you need, which is really useful. So with Formula Synchron, you can either draw a card, or with TG Wonder Magician, you have to pop a Spectre Trap card. Depending on your situation and what your monster lineup is, you can then go into either of these or any other synchros. And let me know if you want to see a TG deck profile, because I've got quite a few TG cards lying around, so if you want to see a TG deck, let me know. And then for your Super Poly targets, one Dragon Necro Never Soul Dragon, and one Starving Venom Fusion Dragon. Just about the best Super Poly targets that we have in the moment. And that's it for the extra deck. I'm going to go on to the combo now, and the combo is very similar to the end board that would make Huggy Fibrax, Vampire Sucker, Zombie World, and Beta Drock, only with certain alterations to try and make it a lot better. So I'm going to go into that right now. Hey, for the combo, it's a 3-card combo, unfortunately, but the payoff I think is kind of worth it. So the cards that you need to open up with are Unizombie, Zombie World, and Vampire Familiar. Other ways you can go about this are also, instead of Unizombie, Shunui Solitaire. Instead of Zombie World, you can either open up with Necroworld Banshee to discard it with Unizombie, or Foolish Burial to send Necroworld Banshee, or Terraforming to search out the Zombie World. And instead of Familiar, you can either open up with Retainer. Now we're going to use Retainer's effect either way, so it doesn't really matter which one you open up with, but with Familiar it's a lot better, because you can end on just a stronger board overall. But I'm going to use these three because this is the simplest I can show this combo, and so you get an idea of how zombie vampires actually work as a deck. So we're going to start with the Zombie World. I'm just going to put it here in the middle just for simplicity. I'm going to normal summon Unizombie. I'm going to use this effect to discard Vampire Familiar, and then I'm going to use this effect again to send Mizuki from the deck to the graveyard. And then I'm going to banish the Mizuki to special summon Familiar, use Familiar's effect to pay 500 life points to add Vampire Retainer to your hand. Then we're going to link summon into Christian Huggy Fibrax. Now you haven't used Vampire Familiar's effect to special summon itself yet, so it won't be banished. You use Mizuki, so you can still use the effect to special summon it by sending a vampire from your hand or field to the graveyard. Then we're going to use Christian Huggy Fibrax effect to special summon Glow Bloom. Then using Glow Bloom, we're going to link summon into Link Karibo, and then use Glow Bloom's effect in the graveyard to banish itself to special summon Doom King Balerdrock. And then using these two, we're going to link summon into Vampire Sucker. And because Zombie World is on the field, Link Karibo counts as a zombie. Then we are going to use Vampire Familiar's effect in the graveyard to discard Retainer to special summon it. And then we are going to send this to the graveyard, however it will then get banished to special summon Retainer. Then we're going to use Retainer's effect to search out Vampire Domination and then set the Vampire Domination. And then during the standby phase, Doom King Balerdrock will come back, so you special summon it there, use Vampire Sucker's effect to draw a card, and then hopefully get into your Ash Blossom to add another negate. Not really a negate, but interruption. So just at a glance, we have 2 interruptions with Balodrog, a monster negate, and a banishing effect, which is really useful. An Omni negate, which will allow you to gain life points if you negate a monster effect. And then Zombie World, which in itself is an interruption against decks that require a specific attribute. Now, with Halki Fibrax, you're going to then banish it to special summon Formula Synchron. You can use Formula Synchron's effect to draw a card, and then using these two, you are going to Synchro Summon into Herald of the Arclight. So, in total, you have 2 Omni Negates, 1 Monster Negate and a Banishing effect, a Macrocosmos, and an interruption with Zombie World, being that everything is a zombie now. And if you have Ash Blossom in your hand, that's even stronger. So this is how the combo with vampires work. It adds more Omni Negates onto your field and just strengthens it overall. Now this is just about as competitive as I could possibly make vampires. And I really like vampires. I think that they deserve a bit more love because they can do some really interesting things and some really interesting combos, especially with zombie decks and just on their own as well, because vampires, as I said at the beginning, are a fully fledged archetype that doesn't rely on Zombie World. Whereas Zombie Control is just a mixture of zombie cards, zombie control cards like Rivalry. Not really a zombie card, but it still really goes together just amazingly. And the basic zombie control deck is just a mixture of zombie cards that make a competitive deck. Whereas vampires completely don't rely on Zombie World, which gives the deck a sort of safety net sort of feel, if you want to look at it that way. But this is just about the best combo that this deck can make. And I really enjoy testing this deck out, just seeing what this deck is possible with and how it plays. And I do see that this particular build can do some interesting things if you want to try it out yourself, because vampires aren't that expensive, they're relatively cheap. So if you want to consider this build of zombies, please be my guest. And if you want to mix around with some of the ratios of the cards, go ahead. Now, one alteration you can do is, if instead of Familiar you open up with Retainer, you would still use Retainer's effect, however it wouldn't be on the field to special summon Herald of the Arclight. So instead what you can do is, instead of searching out Vampire Domination, you can then search out Vampire Awakening. And since Vampire Awakening will special summon a vampire from your deck, you can either special summon another Vampire Retainer, use the effect of Halki Fibrax again to special summon Formula Synchron, and then synchro into your Herald of the Arclight. However, you'll be down on 1 Omni Negate. Now of course there is another alteration you can do with, instead of going into your Herald of the Arclight, use Formula Synchron using these two to go into Shunari Sun Saga, and then return any number of zombie synchro monsters from your graveyard into the left deck. And because of Zombie World, Formula Synchron will become a zombie, so then you can pop a monster or whatever you need to pop. So there are just some alterations you can do with this combo depending on what your hand is like, and this combo can be achieved with a 2-card combo variation with Unizombie and Necroworld Banshee. You discard the Banshee with Unizombie and then use Unizombie's effect to send a Vampire Familiar or Vampire Retainer from your deck to the graveyard. Now the problem with that is it does rely on you having something to special summon one of them with. So in this case it would either be a vampire card that you can get rid of to special summon one of them, or a monster reborn. So it isn't exactly a 2-card combo, it's sort of like a 2.5 card combo. But the 3-card combo I prefer because it's just, you know what you're trying to do, you have all the necessary cards in your hand, so you just go for it. And now I'm going to go on to a 2-card combo where you don't have access to Zombie World, and you can still end on a fairly decent board. So let's go on to that. Right, the combo, if you can't get to Zombie World, is a 2-card combo, and it requires Vampire Familiar or Unizombie. So we will start with summoning Unizombie. Use this effect to discard the Vampire Familiar. Then we're going to use Unizombie's effect again to send Mizuki from the deck to the graveyard. Then you're going to banish the Mizuki to special summon Vampire Familiar. Use Vampire Familiar's effect to search Vampire Retainer. Then we're going to link summon into Christian Helgi Fibrax. Then we're going to use the Helgi Fibrax effect to special summon Plague Spreader Zombie from our deck. Then we are going to use Familiar's effect to discard Retainer to special summon it back. Then we're going to get rid of Familiar to special summon Retainer. Then we're going to use Retainer's effect to search Vampire Awakening. Then we're going to synchro summon into our Herald of the Arclight. Now, if you have any other extenders in your hand, like if you want to continue with Plague Spreader, then you can, but this is just an example to show you what you can do if you can't get to Zombie World. Then you're going to set the Vampire Awakening and then pass to the opponent. Then on the opponent's turn, you will activate Vampire Awakening, special summon Vampire Scarlet Scourge from your deck. Now if you have any other vampires in your graveyard, you can then use this effect to special summon them. And if you open up with Vampire Domination or Vampire Awakening, that's even better. Then you're going to use Christian Helgi Fibrax effect to special summon Formula Synchron. Then using these two, you're going to synchro summon into Berserker of the Tenyu. So with that 2-card combo, you've got a Omni-Negate with Macrocosmos and a Monster Interruption, which isn't as good as the first combo I showed, but it's still a combo that you can go into if you can't get to Zombie World, which is nice to have in case, because with a traditional zombie control deck, it heavily relies on you getting to Zombie World as quickly as possible. But there are some combos in this deck, thanks to the vampires, that mean if you don't open up with Zombie World, or you can't get to Zombie World, it's not the end of the world. And that is it for the video. I really hope you enjoyed watching. Let me know what you thought of the deck profile in the comments, and let me know where you think I could improve upon this deck. I really like vampires, and I would like to see them just succeed a lot more. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed, please consider liking and subscribing. Let me know what you thought. If there's a zombie variant that you would like to see, please let me know, and I'll try my best to make it. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, I'll talk to you all in the next video. Take care.